starting trial in a couple of weeks, and it's a case that could go either way. It's why I kind of like it. But if it falls my way, this thing is huge. I mean, just huge. It's one of those, it's either zero or a lot, you know? And I just came into the case, and the attorneys on the other side, I hit them once before on a similar case, about 395 million. So, you know, when they start making jokes about what a fool I am, I kind of know what they actually know, you know. But because of that, they were just incredibly vicious. I mean, you know, I've been doing this a long time. I've never experienced this. They're both 400 pounds, they're both screaming at me, they're both leaning into me as they do it, you know. And then one of them goes, "You look upset, Mr. Parris. Do you need to take a break?" You've all heard that one, you know, the assholes. But they never heard the response. And this was the response. It was, "Yes, I'm upset. I'm frightened. You guys are 400 pounds, you're leaning into me, you're scaring me to death. I am 70 years old with disabilities, and you are creating a hostile work environment that I shouldn't have to bear." And my voice is cracking. I mean, it was really, there was other lawyers on the Zoom, they couldn't believe it. And then the perfect thing happens. We don't have to provide you a safe working environment. You don't work for us. I'm holding that back, you know, that you actually do have to. You know, we're not allowed to behave that way. The reason I'm telling you this story is I know there is no benefit to me getting into a fight with you, to me showing you how tougher I am, especially when they're 400 pounds. I mean, you know, let's face it, who's going to win that one? You know? And we immediately fall back into that ape behavior, you know, and that's really all we are. What I've learned is that most of what we do is wrong. It's just wrong. And of course it should be wrong, you know. Every measurement is wrong, you know, maybe a little bit, maybe a lot. It's depending on the device you use to measure. Well, if everything we measure is wrong, then of course our conclusions are wrong. Once you kind of get that, you start opening up to the idea that get adventurous, do things differently. I don't fight with lawyers, you know. I try not to fight with lawyers. Evie might disagree. But I want you to be open to that idea, that just perhaps how we're doing it is really not the most efficacious way to do it, you know. My wife made me go to Africa once and go back into the jungle and commune with the apes, you know, the gorillas. It's actually really cool, you know, because I read a lot about gorillas, and I read a lot about primates, you know. And so I knew the behaviors to do, like I'd open my hand for them. I do that to judges all the time. Yeah, just, it's an ape gesture. And so when the baby ape came and chose somebody to smack, it was me. You know, everybody was very jealous. But it was because those are the skill sets that I learned to use in the courtroom. You know, if the judge is going crazy on me, the first thing I do is turn, get out of eye contact, kind of let them see your throat. Maybe just throw that hand open. You know, it changes. It changes. But it's all a science. If it's not replicable, it's not science. When you are invited to these things, the first thing you should be asking is, well, is it one verdict or are they replicated verdicts? Because if they're not replicated, I really can't give you anything you can use. You know, it's too, how much of it was luck? You know, how much of it is teachable? if it's not replicable. All of this is science. Everything that I'm trying to impart to you is based on science. Sometimes I have the science wrong, because new science comes along and you realize, I was probably wrong about that. You have to be open to that. But what I've also discovered is if I'm the only one in that courtroom with a plan, it's not hard to figure out where it's going to end. Even if some of the things I'm relying on might not be totally correct. Evie tried a case with us, and I hope she tries more with us. She made $3 million on a loss of consortium, right? But the deal was for a piece of the whole, right?
Yes.
And so my son is going to sue her for financial elder abuse because they let me negotiate the deal. You did quite well, Evie.
You did too.
One of the things you want to remember, it's all emotion driven. If you haven't captured that emotional high road, it's not going to have the outcome you want. You first have to be focusing on that emotion. What is that emotion? What is going to make that jury more likely to want to go with me? And we're going to teach you some of those things you do right off the bat to do that, because every human being, those are the things that you're looking for. You got to get the heart first. The brain will follow. If you don't have their wanting to help, to wanting to go with you, they're not. Their brain is incapable of mastering what it takes to do that. It's not that it's all going to be, it's not an emotional decision, but to get to the intellectual decision, you have to capture the emotion first. And what I see people frequently do is they go to pull on the heartstrings and think that's going to do it. It's probably the worst thing you can do in some respects. That's not what I'm saying when I say you have to lead with the heart. You have to give them a reason that there's something in it for them, that this is something they want to do. And if you don't figure what that is, it's almost impossible for them to make the cognitive leaps that you're going to ask them to make. Especially when remember what we do. We're asking them to compensate for something that's totally intangible. It's crazy what we do, really, when you think about it. I'm glad we get to do it, but it's crazy. It's an intangible thing. That's why that emotional pull is so important. Because if you don't have that, it is all against us. Intellectually, it is. It's just against us. We don't have any experience on compensating for what we're asking them to compensate. We're going to talk about that during the day, and you'll see how you reverse that.
They have what I call logorrhea dementia, which is they talk so much they drive themselves insane. But what they do have is incredible social skills. When you meet them, they lock into you, they look you in the eye, they invade your personal space, they massage the back of your head. I had dinner with a Republican senator several months ago who kept his hand on my inner thigh throughout the whole meal, squeezing it. This was years ago, I saw Ted Kennedy and Dan Quayle meet in the well of the Senate, and they were friends, and they hugged each other, and they were laughing, and their faces were like this far apart, and they were moving and grinding and moving their arms up and down each other, and I was like, get a room, I don't want to see this. But they have those social skills. Another case, last election cycle, I was following Mitt Romney around New Hampshire, and he was campaigning with his 5 perfect sons, Bip, Chip, Rip, Sip, Lip, and Dip. And he's going into a diner, and he goes to the diner, introduces himself to a family, and says, what village are you from in New Hampshire? And then he described the home he owned in their village. And then so he goes around the room, and then as he's leaving the diner, he first names almost everybody he's just met. I was like, okay, that's social skill. When I got my...
That is social skills. How do I, can I go black? No.
Down is next, up is back.
No, I know, but can I go black?
I can do that for you.
Yeah, go ahead and go black for a minute, okay? Thanks. Do you think, Bill Clinton was capable of doing that, remembering everybody in the room. Do you think that just happened? And, he just was born with that? Yeah, Bill Clinton's incredibly bright, but no, it didn't just happen. When Monica Lewinsky happened, you know the first person who hit the White House? It was, who's that guy? Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins hit the White House because Bill Clinton knew that he screwed up the social skills. It wasn't what he did. It's his presentation of it faltered. Remember what he did? I did not have, remember that? He knew not to do that. You should know not to do that. Every time that finger goes up, bite it, step on it, punish it, all right? Because what is this? That's what mom used to do to me. Teachers used to do to me. A lot of people used to do that to me. And when the jury sees you do that, that is the emotional reaction they have. You're not going to lead them by their heart doing this. It's taken me a long time. I just don't do it. It's like this. It's open-handed. It's, if I want you to perceive me as credible, as the authority, it'll be like this. If I want you to enjoy me, I'm a little off balance, I'm moving my hands open, but it is never like this. That's what I mean by social skills. Those social skills are teachable. Okay. So how many here would like to have more confidence? How many people have seen this before? I don't, okay, good. Shut up. That's my partner. All right, I'm going to give you all more confidence. Because what is confidence? What is fear? Anybody know what fear is? Come on, take a risk.
Perception of threat.
It is. But what is it more basic than that?
Anxiety, heart rate.
That's right. It's a heart rate. You cannot be afraid with a slow heartbeat. You ever been afraid with a slow heartbeat? Well, might be a little anxious, but I don't even think that's possible. It's always reflected in the pulse. And one of the things the science has taught us is our physiology is very circular. You can't separate it. If you can affect the heart rate, you don't feel afraid. I mean, it's bizarre, but it's that simple. And what we know, I'm the mayor of a city, and when we have police shootings, oftentimes it's contagion shooting is what it's called. Everybody starts firing, and what we find, about 87% of the time nationwide, they attended some event. They were at some event, domestic violence, a fist fight, a bar fight, where their heart rate had accelerated, and their emotions were high. And they were coming off that event when this happened. So we become very conscious of heart rate. And trying to teach meditation to police officers is sometimes very difficult. It's not in their wheelhouse oftentimes. But that's really how you can get back the quickest, is if you meditate every day. It gives you that ability to drop that heart rate when you need to. The 140 beats, you're mentally challenged. You know, you got an IQ of about 80, maybe. You know. If it gets to 170, you can't control your bodily functions. You know, that's why SWAT officers and SEALs, they always go to the bathroom before an operation, you know, because they know that heart rate gets up there, they lose control of everything. So why in the courtroom are we so terrified? Can I safely say we've all experienced terror in the courtroom? Come on. A little bit of terror. And of course we do. Because what we've learned, we evolved. We evolved from apes. Many senses we're still an ape. And as we evolved, we did it in tribes. And if we got kicked out of the tribe, right, we died. Nobody survived. You froze to death. You starved to death. Some animal ate you, or the tribe a mile away roasted you. I mean, that's the way it was. You died. So in order for our genes to pass on, we had to not get banished, right? We had to do two things. You had to keep the chief happy, because he controlled all resources, and you had to keep the tribe from kicking you out. And they kicked you out when you humiliated yourself, right? That's why they say public speaking is the biggest fear. It's because we're afraid we're going to get banished. You know, it's happening in our limbic brain. I used to be astonished. Now I kind of think it's sad. But I'll be in a trial, and there'll be these people that like to yell at me, you know, ask me if I'm upset. But when they stand in front of that judge, their hands are shake, you know. They stand behind the podium, or they'll talk to the jury like this, you know, all of the behaviors that express that terror. And they're still running from that terror. They never get to admit it. You know, you can't survive in those firms if you do, because they think with the thought process. And so as a result, no matter how smart they are, no matter how prepared they are, they're afraid of being banished. Just like you will be, and just like I will be. But when I feel it, E.B., what do I do?
You pause. You pause, and I can see you breathing. And in my head, I'm counting with you because I know what you're doing. You're taking a breath, holding it for 4 seconds, exhaling, holding it for 4 seconds, and then taking another breath. And then sometimes you take a time off. But otherwise, I see you breathing and pausing.
There's actually a technique. And it was developed by the Navy SEALs because they found it very difficult to shoot Osama bin Laden after they crashed their helicopter if their heart rate is racing, right? You know, they have to bring it down quickly. So they spent a lot of resources finding out how do we do that and how do we teach it. Pretty easy once you learn it. Oh, I forgot the science. I'm here to teach you the science. They've done fMRI studies where you're playing a computer game, you know, it's in front of you. And it's Pong or something like that, but it's 3 ways. And they pass the ball, you know, 3 ways. And you know it's a computer, you know there's not somebody on the other side. But then pretty soon they exclude you, the game excludes you. And it's just them 2 playing and you're left out. And this is what happens. That rejection causes the same areas of the brain to light up as physical pain does. And of course it would. I mean, think about it. In order to evolve and hold those genes together, something has to motivate you not to allow that to happen. It's the same process as physical pain. Have physical pain so you stay out of the fire, right? It's the same process. So when you're in there and feeling that way, remember this. It's not a character flaw, you know? It's not a sign of weakness. It's simply the fact that you're a human being and you're responding the way human beings respond. But you're different now. Starting right now, you're going to be different. Because, I get ahead of myself. Posner and Dodd's great book on cross-examination, but the one line I've never forgotten in it is, if you give them a choice between public humiliation and abandoning their cause, they will always, 100% of the time, abandon their cause. Now you know why. So thousands of years of evolution made that a certainty. So what do? This is how you deal with it yourself. First thing I do is, what do I see? You have a plaid shirt, it's kind of pink. It's got lines in the squares, a lot of white in it, a lot of gray in it. What do I see, right? Right in front of me, what do I see? The next thing I do is, what do I feel? I thought I'd use a happy picture this time. But like right now, there's probably more weight on my right foot, you know, and more on my heel, a little bit off balance, you know. My nervousness is finally starting to subside. You know, I'm getting a little more comfortable with you. It's going to take another 20 minutes, I think, before I really get peace with you. But that's what I'm feeling at the moment. I wouldn't call it fear, but there's still some anxiety there. What do I feel? You know, I have to know that. Then I breathe, and I do it on a count of 4. It's called the 4 box. You go. You hold for 4. Let it out at a count of 4. And it's the exhale. As you exhale, that's when the pulse will start to lower. Then I hold again with no air in my lungs for a count of 4. So let's practice that, okay? I mean, if we're not going to practice now, we'll never practice. And it's something you really want to practice every day, you know, because you want to train your body to respond. If you can do that 5 minutes, just 5 minutes of meditation a day, that'll really help, because it teaches us how to get into the moment, how to get into the present, you know? And that's where life happens, and that's where verdicts are won, is in the present. Everybody know how to do it now? Everybody know it well enough that they can practice every day?
Breathe in to a count of 4, hold 4, breathe out to a count of 4, hold 4.
Right. It's a 4 box, okay? And, you know, why is it 4 instead of 7? Because that's what the scientists told the Navy SEALs to do. I don't know, you know. I think it's probably the midpoint that's going to affect the most people. And then, I always do this. And it's important. That is an important part. It's called anchoring up. You know, I actually think of this video, and I'm back, you know, because I got to be the happy one. I got to be the engaged one. I got to be the one you want to deal with, because I make you feel good. You're mirroring how I feel. That's why that I'm back is so important, you know. And we'll talk about that a little bit more also. Damn it. And then if none of that works, true, isn't it? I don't think EB ever saw so many drugs. A beta blocker, you know, I'm old, so I have to take it because, you know, my heart's starting to do weird stuff. But it blocks adrenaline, is what it does. You know, the downside of it, however, is that it does, there's some science out there, it's not robust, but there's some science that it interferes with experiential memory. Not what you read, you know, but your experiences. It impacts that. So, you know, you got to make your own choices. I find most of my guys take the drug, you know, don't they? Kitty doesn't take anything. But the guys, they don't seem to have that prohibition. But it's a benign drug. I mean, it's couldn't be a more tested drug out there. You know, millions and millions of people have taken it. You want to see your doctor, I mean, especially if you have some heart issue before you take it. But it's there. You can actually go on the internet, and there's doctors that'll prescribe it over the internet for precisely what I'm talking about. You know, just to control fear. It's there, it's available. I'd like to say I don't use it, but it'd be a lie. You know, I do. I mean, I will take an extra one if it's a very contentious thing. You know? The other thing you can do is take a Tylenol. One Tylenol. Tylenol interferes with the brain signals in the pain centers. It's a brain-activated drug. Remember the video, the picture I showed you? It's the same pain centers. You know, if I'm having a fight with my wife and, you know, I'm tired of it, sometimes it's, you know, I'm bored, but sometimes she's bored, we fight. But if it's a fight I don't want to have, I'll take the Tylenol. You know, it's a whole different experience. It's there all this time, who knew? Now, before you do the voir dire, you have to have a plan. Right? Everything we do in that courtroom, every single thing, every motion in limine, every direct exam, every cross-exam, voir dire, has a mind map. And how many people are familiar with mind maps? The rest of you need to get familiar with them. It's a, you know, how we're trained in school is to do it in a linear fashion, you know, a list, linear thinking. But that's not what human beings do. You know, we're all over the place. You know, some like me a little more than others, but you know, they call it ADD, I think, but anyway. But that's how we think. We think in a much more circular network type way. And so once I get it all mind mapped out, it doesn't matter what happens. You know, I can go back to it. It's right there, it's all on one page. Every witness on one page. The more pictures I can put in there instead of words, the better. You know, because really all it is to remind me of where to go. What are the things I want to accomplish? In voir dire, that's incredibly important because I can't have a, what am I trying to say? I can't be thinking of what I'm going to do next, you know? I have to be present with you, you know, whatever it is. If I start over about what I'm trying to accomplish, you'll feel it, and you're not going to like it.